Hi friends! I have a pile of eyeshadow palettes here, and that has a reason, because I'd love to show you my favorite summer eyeshadow palettes. I've picked out 10 palettes. It was quite a tough job to pick just 10 because I have way more palettes, but I think these 10 are my favorites at this moment. Could be different tomorrow, could be different next month, but for now, these are my favorites. These are the ones that I enjoy the most. These are the ones that I use the most at this moment. So yeah, 10 palettes. We have some high-end, do we have high-end brands? Yeah, we have one high-end brand, and then we have some mid-range brands and also some indie brands. So let's get started. There is one more thing I should mention. This is not a ranking video. So all the 10 palettes that I will show you are just, I just show them to you in a random order. There is no top 10. I like all 10 of these palettes. So yeah, I just wanted to make that clear. It's not a ranking. All these palettes are good quality, good formula. I really enjoy them. I just can't really decide which one I like best. So yeah, not a ranking. Let's start with the first brand. I have actually 3 palettes of them. It's one of my favorite brands. It's Viseart. And I think those of you who have been following me for a longer time, or those of you who also follow me on Instagram, know that Viseart is one of my favorite brands. They have very good eyeshadows. And this palette in particular, this is the Petite Shimmers Koi. This is one of my favorites for both spring and summertime. And this palette just has the most gorgeous shimmers. And what I do, I pair this Koi palette with the All Mattes from Viseart. Viseart has several All Mattes palettes. I think they have a warm version, a cool toned version, a neutral version, but also some more colorful ones with bright shades, editorial brights, or yeah, something like that. So I combine this Koi palette with those All Mattes palettes to create the look that I want. And the best thing about these shimmers is that they are not the most impactful ones. They are more sheer. Well, no, I don't think sheer is the correct term here. You can apply them very subtle if you like, but you can also really build up the color or the intensity of the color if you wish. This is not indie brand multi-chrome intense, nothing like that. It's more subtle. They are still quite impactful. I mean, it's not like you don't see them on the eyes or something like that. They can be impactful if you wish, if you want to. But the versatility of this palette is what makes it so good. I can create a very bold look if I want to, but I can also add just pops of colors with this one to a more neutral look. So basically this shimmer palette has all the shimmers I need during spring and summer. There are all kinds of shades. I mean, we have some purples, we have some yellows and orange shades, also some more greens, like the earthy tones. So there's a little bit of everything in this palette, and I think that's what makes it so versatile. And in terms of application, I always use my fingertips to apply these shimmers. if you don't already own Koi, I highly recommend it. There's also another version, it's called Koi-ish, and that one has, I think, only multi-chromes and duochromes. This one has some duochromes as well, but the other one is just all multi-chromes, duochromes, something like that. Yeah, so that's Koi. And up next is another Viseart palette, and this is not only eyeshadow. This palette contains 2 blushes as well, and this is called the Fleurette Bisou. Fleurette Bisou? I hope I pronounced that correctly. It looks like this. There we go. And as you can see, we have 4 eyeshadows and we have 2 blushes. And this is a very warm toned palette. It's absolutely stunning for these summer days. Every time I do a look with these 4, I am just blown away by how it looks. I really like the looks that I create with only these 4 shades. Of course, most of the time I use them all 4, but I have also done a look with only the multi-chrome light. I applied it all over the lid and it looked so good. So you can easily use this shade for a one and done look. Yeah, there are 2 blushes included, so you don't have to think about what blush you're gonna use. Just pick one of these and you're good to go. I think these are very convenient for vacation, or on the go, or while traveling, because you don't have to bring separate blushes with you. So this palette will be included in my makeup bag when I go on vacation. And then the 3rd Viseart palette, and then I'm gonna stop with my Viseart palettes for summer. This is the, how's it called? The Petite Four Sakura Lotus palette. This is a cool toned palette, and I like it so much because of one shade, and that's the pinky shade here. It has such a beautiful shift. It's like a Barbie pink to lilac purplish kind of shift. It's really hard to explain. I think this is one of the most beautiful shades I've ever seen in a Viseart palette. If you like cool toned makeup, cool toned eyeshadow, you certainly want to check out this little quad, because I am pretty sure you will love this shade just as much as I do. And talking about cool toned eyeshadow, here's Anastasia Beverly Hills Cosmos. And I haven't used this palette in quite a while. I didn't even use it at all in 2024. But when I did my review on the blurring serum blushes, I decided to put these shades on my eyes. And I kind of fell in love again with this beautiful palette. I hadn't used it for a while, and now I kind of regret not using it, because it is really pretty. There are mostly cool toned shades in this palette. There are some warm toned shades as well, but there are 3 shades that I especially like in this Cosmos palette. And the first one is this like turquoise light blue, icy blue shade. It's called Super Cluster, and this is definitely one of my favorite shades in this palette. But I have 2 other shades that I really like. We have, oh, here it is, Supernova. And Supernova has this, it's like a pinky shade with a lilac lavender shift, or a pink shade with some lilac specks in it or so. It's very, very, very pretty on the eyes. Also, the Cassar, I don't think I pronounced that correctly, but it's, yeah, Cassar. And this is like a golden green kind of shimmer. It's a little bit hard to describe this shade, to be honest. When I look at this palette, when I look at this shade, I see gold, I see green, I see a little bit of brown. I don't know exactly how to describe this, but I really enjoy this shade. Also, quality-wise, this is just a very good palette. I mean, this has been in my drawer for untouched for, I think, more than a year. At least 9 or 10 months. And the shades didn't dry out. They are still very smooth. They feel very buttery. They apply and blend effortlessly. I do not have any issues at all with these shades. So yeah, I'm kind of happy that I was shopping my own stash and that I rediscovered this little hidden gem in my personal collection, because I really enjoy it. And next up is the Dior 003 Warm Essentials palette. So from a very cool tone palette, we move on to a very warm tone palette. I know that these shades are not for everybody. Let me show you these in close up. They are very warm, as you can see, obviously. I personally really enjoy the poppy coral shade in the middle and the tangerine one next to it. Those are definitely my favorite shades in this palette. This warm tone palette is summer to me. I see the sun, I feel the warmth from this palette. It's giving me all the sunny summer vibes, and that's why I love it so much. This is very, very pretty, really. The formula is good, but keep in mind that the color payoff is not extreme. So all the shades apply a little bit more subtle, not really intense. You can build up the color, but in general it's more of a wearable, warm toned palette. Very easy to use. It's perfect for everyday use, for the office, etc., work. Perfect if you like these kind of warm tones. There's one more thing I want to mention about the formula, because Dior says that, and I need to check the back of the palette. They say that this palette contains 1, 2, 3 shimmer shades, 2 satins and 4 mattes. But I do not see a difference between the satins and the shimmer shades. They are all just satins. The shimmer shades are not really shimmery. They feel the same in texture, in structure. I just don't see a huge, I don't see a difference at all between the satins and the shimmer shades. Basically, the satins and shimmers are all just satins. The shimmers are not really shimmery. And yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I don't really mind. I like this formula a lot. So I don't mind that those shades are more or less the same, but I can imagine that some of you are a little disappointed about the fact that there are no real shimmers in these Backstage palettes. Up next, we have an indie brand. It's Gloss Gods with the Let's Get Nude palette. And this one has definitely become one of my favorite palettes for summer because this palette has such beautiful shimmers. The color story is very neutral. We have some peach tones, we have some brown tones. There are some pops of color with a purple shade, and there is one shade, and that is the absolute star of the show, and that's the shade Golden Hour. That shade is just so incredibly pretty. I love it. I can't really describe why it's so pretty, but I think it's the fact that I do not have a multi-chrome duochrome that comes even close to this shade. It's called Golden Hour and it looks like Golden Hour. And I am really impressed by the fact that Gloss Gods was able to create this shade because it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. If you like those warm tones, those warm bronzy tones, this is definitely a palette you want to check out. It's from Gloss Gods. That's an indie brand from Sweden. They also have a lot of colorful palettes. So if that sounds appealing to you, just check out their website because I'm sure you will find a palette that suits your personal preferences. For me, this palette is just perfection. This is really a Danielle, a Fedoro palette. It matches very well with my skin tone, with my undertone. These shades are all very wearable, but still impactful if you want to, but also very suitable for a more like natural look. So for me, this is maybe my ultimate summer palette. Up next, I know people are gonna hate me for this. It's Nars. And this is the, let me say it correctly, the Summer Unrated eyeshadow palette. And there she is. And I know you're gonna say, oh, that's so boring. Nars does such boring eyeshadow palettes. Because Nars always gives us the same shades with just some slight differences. And you know what? You're all right. Yes, I agree. You are right. Nars is not very innovative anymore. I think we are all getting bored by Nars Laguna, Nars Orgasm, and everything related to Laguna and Orgasm. Yes, I agree. I don't need any more Laguna. I don't need any more Nars Orgasm. We want something new, Nars. Yes. But why is this in this video? Let me explain. This palette, Summer Unrated, I think it came out in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. This is a palette that I take with me on holiday, together with the Viseart palette that I showed you earlier, because this palette contains all the shades that I want and need, generally speaking. We have some browns here, we have some pink shades, we also have some purple shades, and then we have some warmer tones like the warm reds and the orange shades. And this is basically everything I need when I go on vacation. The quality is good. I never had issues with Nars quality. I never had issues with the shades, with the formula. They apply very well. The longevity is good. Yes, I mean, I've said it before, Nars needs to come out with something new, something different. But in the meantime, this is a palette that I keep reaching for. Up next is the Botanical palette from Beauty Bay. And this is also the palette that I've used for today's eye look. This is a relatively new palette and I am currently testing it. I think I have done 2 or 3 looks now, so not enough to like do a review about it, and you know, this video is also not about reviewing palettes, but for the few times that I've used it now, I really like it. I really like this formula. It has some muted tones. The color story is it's very earthy. We have a lot of earthy tones, but there are some nice little surprises in this palette. Some nice pops of color, and I absolutely love the multi-chrome. No, it's not a multi-chrome, it's a duochrome shade. It's called Waterfall, and oh my god, I mean, I just told you how much I love the Golden Hour shade in the Gloss Gods palette. This is kind of, this shade gives me kind of the same feeling, but in a cool toned way. So we have the Golden Hour, which is a very warm toned golden orangey duochrome shade with a lot of different dimensions, things going on. Waterfall has this golden to blue shift, and it's just amazing. I don't have a shade in my multi-chrome or duochrome collection that comes close to this shade. And this palette is only 19 euros, so it must be somewhere around 19 or $20. And you get 20 good shades for that price. And I'm not telling that this is the best formula ever. There are better formulas, and in all honesty, the mattes, no, not all mattes, some of the mattes are a little bit chalky, a little bit more chalky than I personally prefer, but that doesn't mean they are bad. For me, it means that I have to use a different application technique. So what I do, I don't know if you're interested in this, but what I do when shades are a little bit chalky, I apply them not with a blending brush, but mostly with a flat brush, and then I blend them out with a clean blending brush. And when I do that, I kind of wipe away the chalk or the chalky, powdery feeling. I don't know really how to explain this. I hope this makes sense. But that's what I do when powders are a little bit too chalky for my personal preferences. We sometimes see this with pastel shades too. Sometimes you just need to apply them in a different way than you're used to make them work. And that's kind of what's going on with Botanical too. That doesn't apply to all shades. There are some very soft and easy to use mattes, but some of them are just a little bit chalky. Like I said, my favorite shade is Waterfall. That's this one, but all the shimmers in this palette are wonderful. We have some cool tones in this palette. We have some warm tones in this palette. We have some more neutral tones. There's a little bit of everything in this palette, and that's what makes this so versatile. I really enjoy it so far. I really like it so far. I have to use it some more, you know, use it more thoroughly to really get an opinion about it. But so far, I am really positive about this palette. It's really nice, it's really good. And talking about Botanical also brings me to the Byredo Mineralscapes palette. Both of these palettes do have kind of the same vibe. They both have these earthy tones with combined with the cooler tones, with the grays and the silvers, and of course Botanical has that pop of color with those peachy shades, and Mineralscapes has a pop of color with the blue shades. So yes, of course there are some differences, and the formula of both of these palettes is also completely different. But when I look at these two, I think that Botanical is like the joyful one, and Mineralscapes is more or less the moody one. But I have to say that I have used Mineralscapes a lot during spring, because of course I had to review it. And that's also the reason that I'm not going to talk much about formula and color story and all those kinds of things, because you can watch my review video. That's way more helpful than me now talking in 30 seconds trying to explain things about the formula. That's not going to work. You better just watch that review if you're interested in this palette. But I've used it a lot during spring, and then I thought maybe it's more of a fall palette. And then I thought, well, maybe it's a summer to fall transition palette, because of the blues and the earthy tones. It still gives me kind of the summer feeling, but I also feel that we're going to fall. You know what I mean? I hope it makes sense. But you know, in all honesty, this is just a palette you can use all year round. This is not necessarily a season related palette. It's not. You can use this all year round if you love these cool toned shades. But for now, it's gonna be like a late summer palette, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I have one other late summer to fall transition palette, and that's this one from Sydney Grace. It's the Heaven on Earth eyeshadow palette, and this also has a little bit of that Mineralscapes vibe, but it's different. I hope, yeah, you can see this. For me, this palette has like 3 rows of shades. This row for me is the brown beachy vibe row, and then we have the earthy tones, the greens right here, and last but not least the blues. So that's how I look at this palette. I just see 3 rows of shades that I can of course combine with each other, but I like to use them in this order. I just like that. I find that very convenient. Also, if you are not familiar with Sydney Grace formula, you are clearly missing out. They have a Christmas in July sale. I think when you are watching this, the sale will start within a few days. So keep an eye on their website, keep an eye on their Instagram page. And of course, you do not have to buy anything from Sydney Grace if you don't want to. But if you haven't tried the formula yet, then this is a very good opportunity to discover Sydney Grace eyeshadows. They have single eyeshadows, they have palettes, they also have some face products, they have some liquid products. So the sale is just a very good opportunity to discover this brand. If you get the chance to pick this up or one of the other palettes, because they have some more very, very pretty palettes, I think you should. I don't think you can really tell from what you see here. The palette looks pretty untouched, right? But I can tell you that I have used this palette a lot last year. I haven't used it this year yet because this is a summer to fall transition palette for me. But the fact that you can't tell that I've used it so many times says a lot about the quality. The pigmentation of the Sydney Grace eyeshadows is just incredible. I think for an indie brand, they have the best eyeshadows in terms of pigmentation, in terms of color payoff, in terms of longevity. They know what they are doing, and what they do is good. As you know that I'm a big fan of Viseart eyeshadows, but I think that Sydney Grace is next, is in second place. Maybe Sydney Grace and Viseart are both in first place with their eyeshadow formulas, because I really, really like them. And whenever I use Viseart, whenever I use Sydney Grace, I never go wrong with them. I have several palettes from Sydney Grace. They all work perfectly. I never had any issues with their formula. So again, if you would like to try Sydney Grace, make sure to have a look at their Christmas in July sale. It's gonna start, I think, within a few days. But in the description box, I will link their website, and I will have a look when the sale starts exactly, and I will link it down here. Well, friends, that's it. Those are my 10 palettes that I like the most, enjoy the most, use the most now during summer. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really had a hard time picking just 10 palettes, but it was also a lot of fun. So if you have any questions about these palettes, feel free to ask them in the comment section. Also, I want to know from you, what's your favorite eyeshadow palette for summer? Do you have a favorite? Or do you rather use like eyeshadow sticks, or don't you like to wear eyeshadow at all during summer? Just let me know, because I love to hear about your personal preferences, about your favorites. So yeah, that's it, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye!